You lead me into this thing, oh maestro.
WWE was at a locale near a castle in Cardiff, Wales for Clash at the Castle, which aired in the States on the East Coast at 1 p.m. in the afternoon on Saturday. And I believe you watched. How much of it did you watch?
Yeah, well, I tried to, again, I didn't watch it at 1 o'clock on Saturday. I tried to watch it the following day and ended up succeeding. And tried to at first watch it on the streaming TV in the bedroom on the cock. And I'm watching the beautiful Wales countryside. And all of a sudden the screen froze up. And it wouldn't, because remember I've mentioned I've got the little hot dog sized remote with 4 buttons on it. I'm hitting every button. It won't move. It won't do nothing. So I have to go back to the home and get out of the cock and then back into the cock and then back into the Clash to Castle. And then I see the announcer open where Michael Cole, did you catch that? Obviously somebody had prepped him on plug some British wrestlers because he grouped Big Daddy Giant Haystacks, Orig Williams, and somebody else and obviously reading it off of notes. Michael not up on the World of Sport era.
And they didn't want you to mention the Bulldogs on TV.
Yeah, well, see, this is part of the local flavor now. And then I see that the opening match is a 6-girl tag team match with Bianca and Alexa and Oscar against Bailey and Io and Dakota. And each babyface is getting a separate entrance. So I try to fast forward through the entrances because at least that way I could save 6 or 7 minutes just watching the girls walk to the ring, right? But then on the cock and the streaming TV, the screen goes black when I try to pop in again. So now I'm getting the audio, but no video. And then I can't stop it or fast forward or rewind it. So I have to get out of the fucking Peacock and then go back into the Peacock and then hit resume and then try to fast forward through this match because now I'm pissed and I don't want to see a 6-girl tag team match. But every time I fast forward, because there's no on-screen fast forward, I see the little clock indicator down there zipping ahead, and then I try to hit another button like play, and it'll play back where I started from. It keeps kicking me back. So at that point, I said, fuck streaming TV. And I came up here to the computer where at least it's wired into the wall. And I have my little mouse with my little arrow and the little line down there. And I can control it better. And I was finally able to fast forward through the girls' match. What did I miss?
I watched it because other than Alexa Bliss and... Actually, other than Alexa Bliss, I think everyone in this match is pretty good. So I watched it, and I kind of liked it. I mean, the crowd was really hot and into it, and I can't remember a single thing about it. I mean, so much has happened over the last couple of days. I went in the pool after the event ended.
Did any of the girls hit the other girl with a chair or bite anybody?
No, I mean, they don't... I don't even have a comeback for that. No, they didn't. Yeah,
just maybe grab somebody by the hair, just wind them up, just go to wailing on them, anything like that.
Who's going to be the first to do that in wrestling? Who's going to be the first?
All right, but anyway, but I will say, you mentioned the crowd, and the people were there. They loved it. And they've been waiting. This was a big event, first stadium show in 30 years, and they're proud of their country. They're in whatever countries they came from over in that area of the world. And they wanted to have fun, and they were into the program and the participants and everything, and that made a nice atmosphere. Especially, they did the package then of the Wembley show in '92 and Bret and Bulldog, and boy, that fucking crowd, as they say over there, they went mental for that finish, didn't they? You look back on it now, no crowds go insane like that anymore. But then she said they introduced the family of the British Bulldog, and they had a crowd shot. Who was it? Was it Georgia? Was it Diana? Who was there?
The entire British people
are all the family members.
Of the family of Davey Boy Smith.
And then they introduced Brett, and he had a camera right there. He was sitting there looking thrilled.
Did you see everyone tweeting out the image? At least I saw it several times on Twitter. Brett being introduced and sitting there, and there's a woman behind him, and her shirt is pulled up over her nose like someone just farted in her face. Go back. I'm sure someone will send it to you now, so very funny.
Hey, can we get a picture of the farting woman or whatever?
Well, no, I don't think she would have been doing that for her own fart. I mean, no one...
well, that's right. She's not from Cucamonga.
She was behind Brett, though.
Yeah, well, she
could have been Brett's fart.
It could have Brett.
Sounds like a British headline, doesn't it? Bret Hart's fart.
Brett the Hitman farts. All right. We're going to have to talk about this show now.
Yeah.
So the Intercontinental title match. Let's talk about that. Sheamus and Gunther. And I'll tell you what, this got me into the program at least. I was like, after this, I was like, okay, I will be optimistic for what lies ahead. So I saw, I can't remember what his name was originally, but now they call him Giovanni Vinci, the other cohort of Gunther's with old Ludwig Kaiser. He's back. So now Gunther has both of them again, another Triple H thing. And their entrance is fabulous. Ludwig is perfect for the introduction. Now the facials and the voice, the way he delivers it. And then when Gunther comes out, did you see the choreography? And I'm not talking about dancing, but he comes out and they automatically snap to attention to the side and put their arms behind their back, all that stuff. They look like a bunch of goddamn World War II movie soldiers. It's, he makes me smile, Gunther, just the whole presentation. And this is an example of guys being cool with their gimmick and their entrance and not corny or silly or whatever. And, then, of course, they still do the thing where the Stooges get in a fight while Gunther and Sheamus face off, but it worked better here than on television because at least they're in the match finally and they're going to do something. But the Stooges fought off. And we got the bell.
And this crowd was into it.
Yeah. I mean, they were into, almost everything, but especially the good stuff. And I was afraid on this match. They started at 100 miles an hour, and they're obviously trying to have a fight, a slobber knocker, as they might say. And it was a little sloppy-ish at first. I wish they'd settled down, but Gunther hit a big boot and slowed it down, and then they kind of did. And they worked stiff, but they, it was safe places and they weren't dropping each other on their head all the time, but they worked stiff and did slow down after the first few minutes. And then when Gunther takes over the pace of things, I love the way he works, but that's why I was going to say Sheamus. Everybody was saying on Twitter, I hope that, Sheamus got over with Cornette. He did. I'm still not saying that he's visually off-putting because of the brightness of the hair and the glow of the skin. And he's not smooth like Jack Briscoe, but he worked his ass off here, and it was a slobber knocker, so I do have to respect him for that. And the chops, especially, though, on that skin, he was hamburger by the time that the thing was over with. And Gunther if Gene Kiniski and Killer Kowalski in their primes had a fucking child, it'd be Gunther. So the people were with the strikes. Did you see the slow-mo of one of the chops where the skin rippled? Yeah. And they did a little bit on the floor, but not too much. Big yay boo exchange where they were, doing the 1-2 and they got this is awesome. And the fans were really into this thing because obviously, and Sheamus is, a local hero like Joe Hendry. Several false finishes got big pops. And then finally, Sheamus goes for another kick, but his back that they've been working on gives out. And Gunther hit another power bomb and a big boom, clothesline 1, 2, 3. And that was a great match. But also, even when he lost, the people, and they stayed with it, gave old Sheamus a big ovation because of the effort. So that was nice to see.
Did you feel like it was a goodbye to Sheamus, or was it just a one-night thing? Did it feel like, all right, I'm taking a break?
Well, is he supposed to be?
I don't know. If it's not, that's a good time to take a break. I guess that's my point.
Well, see, that's part of the thing that I've had with him is just, God, he's been around for a while, even before we started watching regularly, and it's the creative has been, for most people. Maybe he hadn't had a chance. Maybe he could go away and learn a new hold, come back, and they'd miss him because he went away. See, these people, they missed him because he's been here in America. He doesn't get over there too often. You're always more popular in places that you don't go all the time. Have you noticed that? Speaking of more popular of places that you don't go all the time, Shayna Baszler next wrestled Liv Morgan. And we were expected to believe in some fashion that Liv Morgan beat Shayna Baszler in any kind of hand-to-hand combat. Do you have any thoughts on this match?
It seems like Liv Morgan has a good relationship with the fans. She's bigger than Alexa Bliss. I don't have any other.
Trying to dig you're searching, right?
What else am I going to say? And to be honest, every show needs a few matches where you can take a break and go outside.
Well, moving on. All the way. The Judgment Day versus Edge and Rey Mysterio. And, of course, they've told a story on TV that Rey asked for Edge to be his partner instead of Dominic because he wants the experience. Dominic understands, blah, blah, blah. Edge did a big entrance in a lucha mask and outfit. Was that new music that he had, or did you pay attention?
Well, I didn't pay that close of attention.
Well, you're tired, aren't you? You're a tired man today.
I'm a little tired, but also when I was fully awake and watching that show, I didn't pay that close of attention.
All right.
If I'm going to be fair, yeah.
The Judgment Day entrance was cool. They had the dark storm clouds and the lightning strikes and everything, and then their spooky lighting. And that's the way to do a spooky, supernatural looking group. You don't actually expect people to believe that they do drink blood and show them removing people's eyeballs. Give them a cool, spooky entrance with storm clouds and lightning. The only problem was Finn Balor's still in this group, and goddamn, he ruins that. I'd like to see Finn in the corner and let Rhea and Damian be the team. But anyway, you had Rey Mysterio and Finn Balor there to do spots. You had Edge and Priest to fight. Did you notice in the middle of that whole thing, out of nowhere, they did the Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, block the partner in the turnbuckle spot that we used to do on spot shows. That's an old Tennessee spot from the 70s where you go to shoot the guy off corner to corner and his partner runs up and gets on the buckle, and when he hits it blocks the impact, right? And then you reverse it on the heels and fuck them up. So they're doing Tennessee spot show spots in Cardiff. Priest here, he's got really great heel attitude and good body language. And I like his work when he's not with somebody that just wants to trade fancy kicks and duck kicks and it looks like a goddamn, low-budget martial arts movie. But anyway, there was a bunch of stuff that took place. And finally, as Priest has been speared by Edge, and they're on the floor, and Finn shit-canned Rey Mysterio and went for the fucking stomp, Dominic drew the referee, and Rey Hurricane Rana'd Finn off the top, but then Rhea beat up Dominic, and Rey dove out of the ring and wiped out Dominic and Rhea Ripley, and then Finn went for a dive, but Dominic tripped him. When he hit the ropes before he could dive, Dominic tripped him, so then Rey hit the 619 and Edge speared him, boom, 1, 2, 3, big pop. That's what I wrote down. It seems like so long ago. But if you'll notice, I said Finn was in control, Brian, as you'll remember. when he hit the ropes to do the big dive and Dominic tripped him and he fell on his face, right?
Right.
So, what goddamn sense did it make as soon as the 1, 2, 3 and the big pop and everybody blah, 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 the heels leave, that Dominic turns around and kicks Edge in the balls and then clotheslines his father? Why did they have to put the spot in where 2 minutes before that he actually helped his father and, fucking Uncle Edge by tripping the other guy? But Dominic got booed out of the building and the Judgment Day laughed about it. But now Dominic is a troubled youth that probably will join the Judgment Day. Either that or he and Julia Hart are going to go out and start dating. What'd you think?
Julia Hart's part of a different faction in a different company that may or may not still exist, for the record.
What, the company or the faction?
We just saw father versus son with Billy Gunn and Colton Gunn.
Yes, we did.
Wasn't a big fan of it there. It's a little more palatable with Dominic and Rey. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm desperate for them to do something else with Dominic.
Well, it's being done better, and also they're actually making something out of it, but still.
Did he turn to the dark side? If that's what we're going to call... Well, that was where you guys were from. Did he turn to the bad side because he's just all of a sudden bad? Or was he promised a date with Rhea Ripley? Or how did this happen? He was getting kidnapped and beaten up. He was getting beaten up minutes before this.
They've got some kind of strange mental hold that they exert, the Judgment Day, on people and draw them into their orbit. If they don't, they should. So feel free to use that idea, guys. Anyway, I've been critical of Matt Riddle in the past, right? Well, I'm going to be some more. I just don't get this fucking guy. Seth Rollins and Riddle. And did you see Seth's outfit when he came to the ring? The entrance, the flower, the Elton John glasses and the flowers and the feathers and the whole night. Adrian Street would have been proud of that getup. And Adrian apparently was there. I saw pictures from the event of him posed with people.
Oh, no, they introduced him at one point during the show. They put up an image and actually introduced him to the crowd. They showed it on the stream. You must have fast-forwarded.
Well, that's part of the time I was fast-forwarding, I guess. But anyway, with Rollins and Riddle, again, it's a grudge match, and they should start in a fight, but they start at 100 miles an hour with Riddle all over Rollins, but... Sheamus and Gunther had just started that way, and it looked better when they did it. But Riddle has an odd style to me. I don't think it's Rollins, because I will admit, obviously, it was his younger days, but in 2010, that match with, obviously, Tyler Black was the Ring of Honor champion. He was having good matches with a number of people, but I saw him and Davey Richards. I said, this is fucking modern Flair and Steamboat. That match they had in Toronto. It wasn't silly. They did 100 things, 100 miles an hour, but everything was stiff and everything hit hard. And the people were into it, and they didn't, do goofy shit to the level of now modern goofy shit. And I know that Rollins is not going to still be working like that 12 years later because he's in the WWF. There's more money on the line for him to keep his body intact. And, he's older and wiser, but he's still a good worker. And so it's got to be, I just don't know what the fuck with Riddle. He's all kicks or big moves or suplexes. There's no wrestling to him. You don't see him drop down, one tackle, hip toss, kick off, arm drag, body slam, drop kick, fire up, whatever. It's all this odd shit that he's doing. And the barefoot thing and the goofy hair and the wildlife flying out of his ass. I just don't get it. Is it me, or is there something to what I'm saying?
I don't know. I agree he's talented, and there's been matches of his that I've enjoyed. I remember, what was it, the Timothy Thatcher match? Whatever happened to that guy? Where's he, Triple H?
Yeah, where did he go?
But the Timothy Thatcher match, I forget what the name of the fight cage was in NXT. It was great.
something like a snake pit or a fight pit or whatever.
Look, and even though he sounds like Lenny Dykstra, he sounds, funny. He can deliver stuff when it's real, and like with him and Rollins the other day, you kind of believed it. It's just when it's the whole scripted bro act. The real bro act is probably the good shit that can connect with people. When it's scripted, it's a little silly, and he's been silly the whole time, but now he's got his first name back. Have a little bit of a feud that's different than the normal G-rated crap on WWE TV. Maybe we'll see more of what people have always talked about. I don't know. I mean, early on, you heard Kerry Von Erich comparisons, and
I heard,
and then Kevin Von Erich because he's barefoot. I mean,
I heard one person from Campbell by the Sea, California, compared him to Kerry Von Erich. And to quote a famous vice presidential debate, I knew Kerry Von Erich. I worked with Kerry Von Erich. This guy ain't no Kerry Von Erich. But nevertheless, it was a modern match, and there was a lot of action, and I'm sure a lot of people like that. But just one thing. At one point, Seth had to stand on top forever and then flip off, but Riddle moved, but Seth rolled through, and they kicked each other 20 times each and traded 10 more moves without selling any of them till after the 10th, and then they both go down because that's the modern thing that they do. And then Seth trash talks him on the microphone. His wife left him. He's a loser, and Riddle comes back with open hand slaps. It's odd. Riddle has a finishing move named the Bro Derek.
I didn't realize that because I had never listened to the commentary.
Yes, no, that's what I just can't. And
I hope the estate of John Derek sues.
Well, he had skeletons in his closet. At one point, Riddle got on Seth and started windmilling him, kind of like he was a petulant child, and then bounced him off the desk about 10 times. Also, I don't know, maybe anybody in the business that wants to anonymously tell me this, Matt Riddle looks like one of those guys that is difficult to work with because he's a little herky-jerky, and you're not sure when he lays his hands on you exactly where he wants you to go first off. It just seems like or he's more anxious for you to get there than you're ready to go at that point, and you might lose a little hair in the process. Whatever. I could be wrong. And then finally, Seth hit a curb stomp on Riddle and got up the second rope and hit a curb stomp on him 30 seconds later, and 1, 2, 3. So they have a 100-mile-an-hour match, and then the finish, as usual with the WWF, slows down. The finish used to be the big pop, and now it's what happens 30 seconds or a minute before the finish, and then the finish, the fans predict it's a foregone conclusion. I don't know. But I did enjoy seeing Seth dressed up as the love child of Elton John and the Joker. But you know what match was coming up next, because this was an actual wrestling pay-per-view instead of an endurance test, and they went 3 hours and 20-something minutes with 6 or 7 matches. Nice and easy for everybody to digest. It's time for the main event, Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. And can they recreate the magic of that immortal night in Wembley Stadium when the hometown hero comes out on top? Probably not. We know that in the overall scheme of things, Roman Reigns is the guy, but they built this thing up. They're going to give us a fight. They got plenty of time. There's no Heyman and no Usos, but Roman still looks like a badass coming out, and the people were ready for this. And they knew it at the start. They took their time. They started with a long lockup. They were working into it because they knew they already had the people, and this is the match they paid to see. There's no reason to start at 100 miles an hour, and they're going to put some time in. But Roman Reigns is so good with the little things because, like, just early on, showing that he was rattled, just a little facial and backing off and ducking under the rope, that's a different dimension, and it means something when this guy seldom backs up. So when he does, people go, oh, I mean, this is wrestling 101. And Drew obviously had to kick Roman's ass for, the early part of this and shine a little bit, and then had a way out. He was distracted by Cross and Scarlett were sitting at ringside, and they threw the water bottle at him and distracted him so Reigns could take over. And I got to be honest with you, McIntyre sells great for a big guy with the facials and the body language and everything. He's got the gist of this. He's a good worker. But they did a nice little spot there where Roman Reigns calls for the microphone and asks Cardiff to acknowledge him and turns around and McIntyre flattens him with a fucking headbutt. And, then they start, McIntyre does a comeback, goes for a superplex, Roman foils it. They have the fight. They go back and forth, couple of big pops on 2 counts. And then there was a point where everything kind of slowed down, and I was like, where are we going? And then, again, Roman goes for the Superman punch, and Drew turns it into a DDT and sets up for the kick and runs into a Superman punch 2 count, and then everybody sells forever. So I think at that point, they're going to do a big exchange, and then everybody's going to sell forever because it's a big show match and they got to go 40 minutes or whatever. Did you see that? Could they have tightened this up in the middle? Or was it because it was a stadium crowd? They wanted to make sure everything sunk in on everybody. What do you think?
I think maybe that, just because of the way WWE does things, and I think it would have been acceptable, not to get ahead of ourselves, if the finish hadn't been so flat, it wouldn't have stuck out so much after the fact.
Well, anyway, again, they go for Roman getting the face lock. He's choked a lot of guys out with the front face lock. McIntyre would power out, Roman to get it again. They had great facials. The struggle of this thing, the story they told, that was good. Another spear through the barricade. Don't you think at this point the WWE should start trying to get a refund on from their barricade supplier? These are fucking defective. Everybody sold forever. And then they do the spot where they bump poor referee Charles Robinson, and music plays. And here comes Theory. Did they always play music for the guy cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase? Or isn't it good enough he just runs down out of nowhere?
As far as I can remember back, they have, but I don't know about the early days when they first created the wonderful briefcase.
Yeah, but anyway, the whole deal is, here comes Theory. Well, both guys are down. He's going to cash in the briefcase. He runs right to the railing and hands the briefcase to a referee and says, I want to cash in. And Tyson Fury, the boxer, stands up from the front row and knocks the shit out of him. And that may have been the pop of the night. So then they continue the match and they trade a million blows and kicks and etc. And finally, Drew hits his finish, gets a 2 count, and there's Solo Sikoa from NXT, pulls the referee out to the floor. And because he's a member of the bloodline now, too, legitimately, he's the Usos' brother, right? So then,
I believe so, yeah.
Sikoa jerks McIntyre's neck on the top rope, and McIntyre flies into the ring, into the spear, boom, 1, 2, 3. So, it wasn't the flattest finish I've ever seen. They wanted to make, or Sikoa to make an impact, but yeah, I don't know, after all of that, it seemed like, maybe it was a little flat. I don't know. Are you right? You don't have to be right all the time, Brian.
The finish, it was really flat, because I think people were expecting the title change. They just built up the 2 years of Roman Reigns with that big celebration on SmackDown.
But were they smoking the hopium to think there was going to be a title change?
I guess so. I mean, in Cardiff, Wales, the guy comes out with a fucking sword. Place is going nuts for him.
He should have used the sword.
I think people also, I shouldn't say that. I don't think a large enough number of the crowd were in on this, but I think some people were expecting Heyman to show up as well.
That actually probably would have, I know they wanted to get Sikoa started off right, but if Heyman had showed up and screwed McIntyre, I think it would have probably been more exciting and accepted a little better. But that wasn't the face-off, or the end of the show, they still had the big face-off with Roman Reigns and Tyson Fury, and they shook hands. I don't know what that was about, because then Roman Reigns leaves and Tyson Fury stays in the ring with Drew McIntyre. And this is going to sound like I'm now reviewing AEW, but I'm not. If you didn't see this, Fury gets in the ring, shakes hands with Roman Reigns, Roman leaves, and then Fury gives McIntyre a pep talk and decides to cheer him up by singing American Pie by Don McLean to Drew McIntyre, and then Drew joins in a duet.
And I think it's brilliant. I never even thought about this way to make people forget about the babyface losing a big title match. Just have them sing with a boxer right after the match.
This made me want to forget that I was ever born, much less what and why the song. First of all, he cheers Drew McIntyre up by singing American Pie after Drew McIntyre just got his ass beat and lost his chance at the championship in the most important UK event in 30 years. But why American Pie? Why not? They're in Cardiff. Why not Welsh Pie?
Maybe he's trying to signal him. Don't get on that private plane.
A long, long time ago.
I'm looking here. I
could still remember.
No, be careful. He's he's a highly litigious man, Don McLean. But what I see here is apparently Tyson Fury sang American Pie after beating Deontay Wilder, another great boxer of our modern times. So I guess maybe it's part of his thing. He goes in there and this is his song. He sings American Pie.
Yeah. Well,
that's all right. It'd be like an American boxer singing the Kinks after they won a match.
You really got me. Well, I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride, but I sure did cry when I heard them singing that song.
I'm going to cry if we have to keep talking about this. So, people have no idea what our schedule's been like the last few days. Right, and it's just been insane.
But that was Clash at the Castle. They had a fun time was had by all over there, and then the next day came and people were brawling in the locker rooms over here in America.